Survivor Series 97 happened on November 9th in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Around 20,000 fans attended the show in the Molson Centre, while 250,000 homes bought the show on pay-per-view, making it the most successful WWF pay-per-view of 1997. Fans were tuning in to see a match that was a year and a half in the making, WWF Champion Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. Fans were also eager to see the in-ring return of Steve Austin. Stone Cold versus Owen Hart for the IC title happens in Montreal, and the Kane character makes his in-ring debut with a match against Mankind. We've also got a few traditional Survivor Series matches to look at. There's a lot to talk about in today's video, so let's get straight to the pay-per-view. This is the infamous Survivor Series 97 show from Montreal. We start off with a traditional Survivor Series match, the Heabangers and the new Blackjacks taking on the Godwinns and the team of Billy Gunn and Jesse James. It's a curious mix of teams here, with practically no one having anything in common at all, except for the fact that Gunn and James smashed a boombox over Thrasher's head and they stole the Blackjacks' sick cowboy hats. Gunn and James were the team to watch here. They were the ones who had something a little interesting going on Monday nights. The big boys go to work first. The new Blackjacks and the Godwinns duke it out, and it leads to Henry getting eliminated by Bradshaw. Phineas then eliminated Barry Windham after nailing a lariat. Mosh came in and he slowed the match down with an armbar, and the crowd booed loudly when Billy Gunn got tagged in, showing us that these Outlaws were doing something right. The audience then chant the F slur at Billy Gunn, and I'll get this out of the way now. This audience was absolutely relentless when it came to this kind of thing, and you're going to notice it too with signs in the crowd. It gets a bit more crazy during the main event, but yeah, you're going to see some crazy signs during this video. Gunn countered a bulldog with a face-first slam, and that was enough to eliminate Mosh. Thrasher and Phineas then went to work, and that ended with Phineas getting eliminated after a seated senton. So we have James and Gunn versus Bradshaw and Thrasher. Bradshaw chopped the shit out of Road Dogg, and James takes a gut-wrench powerbomb. Gunn then distracted Bradshaw, and this allowed James to perform a schoolboy pin. Bradshaw seemingly kicked out just before 3, but the ref says he's out. He gets up and he nails James and Gunn with hard clotheslines. And so the heel team now have a 2-on-1 advantage, an advantage that Thrasher couldn't overcome. Billy Gunn gets a blind tag and he comes in with a leg drop. He missed by a mile here, but that's how it ended. Gunn and James are the survivors of our first Survivor Series match of the evening. This wasn't great, but it's not the worst Survivor Series match of the night. That one's up next when the D.O.A take on the Truth Commission. The gang wars on WWF have gotten quite a lot of TV time as of late, and feuding factions was the overall theme for Survivor Series 97. The show was given the tagline Gang Rules or Gang Rolls. But my god, was this stuff already getting repetitive by the time Survivor Series came around. Los Boricuas are not featured on the show, however, but we do have the Nation of Domination competing a little later on. Chains was the first guy eliminated after a sidewalk slam from the interrogator. The Jackal Don Callis, the leader of the commission, was the second man eliminated after another sidewalk slam, though this time it was from 8-Ball. Callis went on commentary as Recon fell on his ass in the middle of the ring. Recon then fell victim to an 8-ball and skull switcheroo, and he too got eliminated. So the D.O.A had 3 guys while the commission had Sniper Elite and the Interrogator. It then became 2-on-2 after a bulldog from Sniper. Sniper was actually from Montreal, but the audience couldn't have cared less. The D.O.A then did everything they could to stop Sniper from tagging in the big man, but the dirty old assholes got caught out with a blind tag. We see another sidewalk slam, and this leads to Crush being all alone against 2 guys. Crush did manage to eliminate Sniper with a tilt-a-whirl power slam, but the Interrogator came into the ring immediately afterwards with, you guessed it, another sidewalk slam. The Interrogator wins it for the Truth Commission, and nobody cared. Not a single person cared. Fans are getting questioned outside about who's going to win tonight, Shawn or Bret. Some fans think that Shawn should go back to the United States because he has no chance of winning the WWF title tonight. Others think Bret's going down at the hands of HBK and D-Generation X. Our guy here though, he knows what's up. He says even though he wants Bret to win, Shawn's going to end up becoming a 3-time champion tonight. Steve Austin's in the AOL room answering some online questions. It's a dressing room with two creeps typing away on their state-of-the-art laptops. And Austin's pretty honest when he tells Kevin Kelly that he is worried about his neck tonight, but he also doesn't care. You gotta live with these things and go on. Stone Cold wants nobody to feel sorry for him because these are things that just happen. Up next, we've got the Team USA vs Team Canada Survivor Series match. The Patriot was replaced by some J-Brone who jumped the guardrail on Raw, and that J-Brone is none other than Steve motherfucking Blackman. Check out Vader's delayed reaction at the beginning of the Team USA promo.
Threat.
Vader introduces the team. Goldust dropped Marlena like a bad habit and he now has FU painted on his face. Edgy. Mark Merrill's here and he too's having some woman troubles with Sable stealing his spotlight, but newcomer Steve Blackman has zero trouble with the ladies. Guy's an absolute dreamboat. Vader says this team only has one thing in common: they don't like big mouth Canadians trash talking Americans. Steve motherfucking Blackman says he's not experienced in WWF rings, but he's experienced in fighting. A fight's a fight to Steve Blackman, so he's ready to go. Merrill and Goldust don't get any interview time. The boys make their way down to the ring and Jim Ross says the FU on Goldust's face stands for Forever Unchained. That clears that up. Bulldog says Team USA is now in enemy territory and Team Canada are going to be victorious. Doug Furnace says he was once proud to be an American but not anymore. They say America, love it or leave it. Well, Doug Furnace left. Jim Neidhart and Phil LaFawn aren't allowed to speak. Team Canada get a great ovation during their entrance. They come out to Bret's theme and you can see the Canadian flags go up instantly as soon as that opening guitar screech plays in the arena. We start with the Bulldog and Mark Merrow, and Merrow throws his Stars and Stripes bandana at Davey. Davey wipes his ass with it and he throws it at Sable. She catches it too and she'll treasure that item for the rest of her life. After drop-kicking Merrow out of the ring, Davey taunts Steve Blackman. I love how Steve just doesn't know where to look here. The crowd chants for Sable and Merrow moves Sable away from some pervy fans before tagging in Vader. Davey takes a clothesline, but he counters Vader's second rope attack with a body slam, and he only goes and delivers a vertical suplex on Vader in the middle of the ring. He tags in Phil LaFawn afterwards, but you can tell Davey was in his element here. His mood would quickly change by the end of the show though. Merrow comes back in and he finds himself in the wrong corner. The crowd goes nuts as Team Canada take Mark out, but then Steve Blackman gets tagged in and it's time for greatness. Steve hits an axe kick, he snaps LaFawn's neck on the top rope, and he lands a running elbow drop that only gets him a 2 count. Steve then gets welcomed to the WWF with a DDT, and he comes back with a running double palm strike to the chest. He then shows why they call him the lethal weapon by taking out all of Team Canada by himself, but he gets himself counted out. He fights with Team Canada on the outside, but Phil LaFawn got back in the ring and the ref sends Blackman back to the dressing room. Team Canada now have the advantage, but they don't keep it for too long. Big boys Vader and Jim Neidhart go to work and the Anvil gets eliminated after a running splash. LaFawn gets back inside the ropes and he knocks Vader to the outside with a spinning wheel kick. Vader gets thrown into the ring steps and Doug Furnace gets in a few cheap shots. All this though isn't enough to stop the big man from eliminating LaFawn with a middle rope splash. Mark Merrow and Doug Furnace then get in the ring and Furnace tries to catch Merrow during a moonsault, but it doesn't work out too well. It looks like it done a bit of damage to Furnace too because he tags out immediately after hitting a spine buster and you can hear Davey asking him if he's okay. Remember, Doug was involved in a car accident and according to reports, he suffered a broken shoulder blade, though I'm unsure what side it was on. Davey comes in to save the day. He goes for a running power slam, but Merrow counters and the Bulldog takes a big right hand. Furnace gets tagged back in. He manages to eliminate Mark Merrow and it looks like he's fine after that moonsault, thankfully. Vader and Bulldog then do a little work, but there's one guy who's yet to compete in this match, and that's Goldust. He's complaining about having a broken hand and he refuses to tag in. This happens frequently as Vader gets forced to deal with Furnace and Bulldog all alone, but finally Vader loses it and he tags in Goldust by slapping him across the face. Goldust isn't prepared to wrestle tonight, so he leaves the ring and he gets himself counted out. The match ends with Vader eliminating Furnace with a Vader bomb, but our main man Davey grabs the ring bell. Vader gets clocked behind both referees' backs, that's just how good Davey was, and the Bulldog wins it for Team Canada. A great send-off for the British Bulldog who, without a doubt, gave us a ton of entertainment during this WWF run on Reliving the War. No chin locks here either, showing us all that Davey overcame his demons in the end, and he was able to ride off into the sunset a true hero. Kane appeared at Bad Blood and he dropped The Undertaker with a tombstone piledriver. Taker said on Raw he would never fight his own flesh and blood, but his little brother won't accept no for an answer. Kane's went on a path of destruction led by Paul Bearer, and that path goes through every WWF superstar until Kane finally reaches his big brother, and The Undertaker will have no choice but to fight. Dude Love was taken out by Kane with 2 chokeslams on the Raw's War rampway, and Mick Foley decided to bring in his Mankind persona to get a little payback. This is the Kane character's first televised match, and Foley says before the bout that fans shouldn't expect a wrestling match tonight. This is Mankind versus a brick wall. Common sense says you walk around or climb over a brick wall, but that's not Mankind's way. Mankind will launch himself into that brick wall over and over again. Foley wants to get his hands on Paul Bearer after the match after Paul called him a pebble on the path of destruction, and Mankind says Paul's gonna regret saying those words if Foley can knock that wall down. The competitors make their entrances, and look at how good Kane looked during his early days in the company. Mankind launches an attack as the Big Red Machine makes his way to the ring, but that doesn't work out too well. Foley gets thrown into the ring steps twice before the match begins, and those red lights are going to stay on throughout the entire bout. Kane's pyro goes off just as the bell rings, and Mankind is already at a severe disadvantage. A few clubbing blows to the back seems to wake Foley up, and Kane takes a few punches, but he also lands on his feet just like The Undertaker when Foley clotheslines him over the top rope. On the outside, Kane fucking launches the ring steps at Mankind before Foley gets thrown back inside the ropes. It's all strikes here from Kane, and in the middle of taking this beating, Mankind begins ripping his own hair out. He keeps coming back and hitting that brick wall though, and Paul Bearer really likes what he sees. Mankind gets punched and choked in the corner, and Kane pulls off a sidewalk slam before booting Foley in the face. They go outside again, and it's becoming more and more apparent that Foley doesn't have a hope in hell here. But then Foley surprises everyone by dropping Kane on the ring steps. The crowd pops as Jim Ross says Kane looks stunned and maybe he's now a little more vulnerable. Foley hits Kane with a steel chair, and back inside the ring he delivers a piledriver. He signals for the mandible claw, but he doesn't give it to Kane. Paul Bearer takes Mankind's finisher, but this was maybe a mistake because the Devil's favourite demon wakes up, and with one hand he launches Mankind into the Spanish announce table. Absolute chaos at Survivor Series, and the fans are enjoying this one so far. Mankind crawls away and the two end up at the bottom of the entranceway. Foley hits a low blow followed by a DDT. We then see a little Cactus Jack when Foley dives off the apron with an elbow smash. He tries another high-risk attack, but Kane leaps onto the apron and he throws Foley off the second turnbuckle straight to the outside. And that's gonna be the end of our match. Kane gets back in the ring and Foley crawls over. He won't give up, so Kane puts him out of his misery with a tombstone piledriver. A dominating performance from the Big Red Machine, and they put this one together the right way. The little glimmers of hope against a truly unstoppable monster made the match way more interesting. Who's next on this path of destruction, and when will The Undertaker come face to face with his little brother again? Maybe we'll find out tomorrow night on Raw. Michael Cole interviews Sergeant Slaughter and Vince McMahon. McMahon isn't calling the action tonight, of course. Slaughter says there's extra security in place tonight as things are tense backstage. McMahon says it's important that fans get to see this Bret vs Shawn match. The bout was booked numerous times and it didn't happen, and Vince hopes nothing happens between the two men before the match takes place so fans all around the world can finally see this main event between two of the WWF's biggest superstars. Michael Cole asks Vince who's gonna win tonight, and McMahon says he doesn't know. We've got the final traditional Survivor Series match of the night, the Nation of Domination versus the Legion of Doom, Ken Shamrock and Ahmed Johnson. Shamrock and the L.O.D have had each other's backs as of late, and Ahmed's been having issues with the Nation since the dawn of time. Rocky Maivia has been the one to watch recently though over on the heel team, with fans responding to Maivia way more than any other member of the Nation. Even if it was still all negative, he was definitely the man getting the most heat for the faction. Speaking of Rocky, he gets the first elimination by hitting Road Warrior Hawk with a rock bottom. Shortly afterwards, Ahmed Johnson and Farouk got in the ring, and surprisingly, Farouk gets eliminated after taking a paired river plunge. Ahmed may have fallen on his ass when countering the Dominator, but he still hit his finisher on the nation's leader, and now it's time to see how the nation fares without their top dog. D.O.A was in next, and check this out, Johnson doesn't react to D.O.A's punches at all. It doesn't even look like he's purposely no-selling, it just looks shit. Rocky comes back in after Ahmed takes care of D.O.A. Farouk holds Ahmed's feet after tripping the big man up, and look, the referee on the outside sees it all happen, yet Ahmed still gets eliminated. Even Jim Ross can't believe this. Ahmed and Farouk fight at the entranceway before going back to the locker room. We've now got Ken Shamrock and Road Warrior Animal against Rocky, Kama, and D.O.A. The crowd chants Rocky sucks as Road Warrior Animal and Ken Shamrock do a number on the future People's Champ. But Maivia tags out and Kama comes in. Animal counters a front facelock before both he and Kama crash into each other with a double clothesline. When the two get back to their feet, Animal eventually puts Kama down with a jumping shoulder block, but the fans don't really care. They're too busy chanting Rocky sucks. Kama celebrates with Rocky after nailing Animal with a hook kick, but he really should have paid more attention to his opponent. Animal's able to knock Kama into Maivia and score the pinfall, so now it's 2-on-2. We think Shamrock's got it all under control when he and D.O.A resume the match, but some underhanded tactics from the nation result in Shamrock getting his little world's most dangerous man smashed in. Remember guys, 2 referees. D.O.A applies a chinlock as the quest for the next Reliving the War chinlock king continues on. Shamrock fights out, but he takes a knee to the gut, and D.O.A misses a second rope moonsault that would have looked great if it connected. D.O.A and Shamrock tag out, but then Road Dogg and Billy Gunn show up wearing the L.O.D shoulder pads that they stole on Raw's War. Rocky sends Animal to the outside. Animal fights with James and Gunn, but Road Dogg throws some white powder straight from Shawn's fanny pack in Animal's face, and the Road Warrior gets counted out. Gunn and James laugh on their way back up the entranceway, and so Shamrock has to try and beat 2 members of the nation. Ken breaks through a double clothesline and he takes out both Rocky and D.O.A. D.O.A then gets nailed with a belly-to-belly suplex, and he taps out to the ankle lock. Rocky grabbed a chair while D.O.A was in Shamrock's finishing hold, and Maivia takes Shamrock out as the referees get D.O.A out of the ring. Rock covers Shamrock kicks out, and Rocky can't believe it. He brings Ken to the corner and he lays in the punches and kicks, but Shamrock isn't done yet. Ken fights back, but he ends up taking the float over DDT. Rocky covers Shamrock again, and again Shamrock kicks out. They've got the crowd on their feet, and Rocky's reactions are brilliant. Rock then slams Shamrock to the mat. He removes his elbow pad, which he hadn't done before on Raw, and he delivers the People's Elbow, a move that we have seen before, but keep in mind, the move didn't have its classic name yet. Maivia goes for another float over DDT, but Shamrock counters with a modified Northern Lights suplex. He then performs a Frankensteiner, and Shamrock gets in his zone before applying the ankle lock. Rocky has no choice but to tap out, and the nation lose this Survivor Series match. Shamrock and Rocky got the crowd making the most noise of the night so far. It was a great night for both guys, with Rocky still looking good even in defeat. If this was going to be the future of the World Wrestling Federation, then things weren't looking too bad at all. A video plays that would become iconic in the world of pro wrestling, but it was confusing back in 1997 for the first few seconds. D-Generation X's theme music plays for the first time as footage of the group gets mixed in with a load of other footage, from helicopters to police cars to pole dancers, all pieces of footage the WWF have used previously, but it all comes together here to form an excellent entrance video, and the D-Generation X theme itself is simply a classic. This video though is for the next In Your House event. DX are getting their own pay-per-view show, and it looks like no lessons were learned from the ill-fated NWO sold-out fiasco in January, but there you have it. I do remember seeing this live and thinking to myself, well, that's a dead giveaway, HBK's winning tonight's main event. The IC title match is up next, and this one's all about Steve Austin getting revenge for what happened at SummerSlam. Austin suffered a severe neck injury when he took a piledriver from Owen Hart, and he was forced to give up the Intercontinental Championship, while also being forced to contemplate what to do next with his career. Austin, legitimately, was worried about losing all his momentum by staying out of the ring, so he's maybe coming back a little too soon here to face Owen Hart at Survivor Series. Austin helped Owen win the IC title tournament that was held when the championship got vacated, and he's also helped Owen during subsequent title defenses. Austin didn't want Owen to lose that championship. The only person beating Hart for the IC title would be the Texas Rattlesnake. In storyline, Austin signed a new contract that would stop him from suing the World Wrestling Federation if he were to get seriously injured, and he only agreed to sign it if this match in Montreal was also set in stone, so here we are. The Stone Cold we once knew is now gone. Austin changes his ring style after the neck injury, and you'll see what I mean if you watch this match back. He had a pane of glass set up at the entranceway that didn't completely break though, so that sucked. But the Canadian audience still couldn't help cheering for Austin, and Stone Cold had his fair share of fans in Montreal. Owen comes to the ring with Team Canada, and Owen gets a great reaction too. Just like on Raw's War, Jim Ross calls Owen the real Hitman after what he did to Austin at SummerSlam, and it does make you wonder what the initial plans were for Owen and all of Team Canada. Plans that probably weren't met due to what happens in tonight's main event. There's a fair bit of time wasting at the start of this one, and the match isn't going to go long either due to Austin's health. The Anvil tries a sneak attack and he takes a Stone Cold Stunner, but this allows Owen to jump into the ring and launch an attack. The crowd chanted break his neck as Owen went on offense, but this just fired Austin up more, and Owen gets destroyed in the corner. Owen then goes for the pile driver and the crowd pops, but Austin counters with a backdrop. Owen goes to the outside where he's able to wrap Austin's leg around the ring post. He then notices Team Canada getting sent to the back, so Owen too tries to leave the match. Austin gives chase, he takes Owen out. Stone Cold stays on offense all the way back to the ring, but Owen slides out again. He clearly wants no part of this match. Still, the IC champion hits a low blow, and this finally gives him a chance to go on offense again. Austin gets his head slammed on the broken Spanish announce table, and Owen rakes Austin's face. Stone Cold gets choked with some cord. The referee screams at Owen to knock it off, and when the two get back in the ring, Owen stays on Austin by again raking the face, but all this isn't enough. Austin throws Owen in the corner and he stomps a mud hole in him. They go through the same SummerSlam piledriver setup, but there's no piledriver this time around, just a Stone Cold Stunner that leads to Austin winning the Intercontinental Championship. Furnace and LaFon take Stone Cold Stunners too when they hit the ring after the bell. And that's it, Stone Cold is IC champion once again. This new brawler style of Steve Austin is what fans would have to become accustomed to, but it certainly didn't come to any detriment to Austin's popularity. Quite fittingly, right after this match, the WWF aired their first ever Attitude promo video. It's all about how people look at wrestlers and how wrestling isn't real, yet some of the guys have legit athletic backgrounds, and the guys also go through severe injuries while performing in the ring. It ends with Bret Hart saying, "Try lacing my boots," and then the Scratch logo gets revealed for the very first time. Bret Hart agreed to sign with World Championship Wrestling when Vince McMahon informed him that he could no longer commit to Hart's 20-year WWF contract. It's been said that McMahon wanted to cut down on long-term investments as he hoped to make his company public, and with World Championship Wrestling destroying the WWF and the TV ratings, the company wasn't in the financial position it had once forecasted. Whatever the case, Bret Hart was unaffordable, and Bret decided to sign with WCW while still holding the WWF Championship. Vince wanted Bret to drop the title to Shawn at Survivor Series, and Bret said he wouldn't do it. Tensions were already seriously high between Bret and Shawn before this match was booked, and the straw that broke the camel's back was when Shawn told Bret he wouldn't put him over after Bret said he'd be willing to lose to Shawn during a conversation both men had before Bret agreed to sign with World Championship Wrestling.
I said, I just want you to know that I have no problem putting you over. And Shawn looked me in the eye and said, I appreciate that, but I just want you to know that I'm not willing to do the same thing for you.
When Shawn made this remark, Bret said there's no way he'd ever lose to him again, but that of course brings on the problem we have here at Survivor Series. Vince McMahon asked Bret time and time again to drop the belt to Shawn, and Bret consistently refused. He had a creative control clause written into his contract that legally gave him the right to refuse any storylines or match outcomes placed in front of him before he left, and he'd already worked more dates in 1997 that was already agreed upon in his contract. Bret could have no-showed Survivor Series and there wouldn't have been a thing Vince could do about it. Still, Bret arrived at the arena on the 9th of November 1997, and he and Vince came up with a DQ finish. DX and the Hart Foundation would hit the ring at the end of the match, and Bret would leave still the WWF champion. The plan after that is up in the air, but Bret said he would have dropped the belt on Raw or vacated the belt after a promo. So Bret's going into this one thinking it's going to be a disqualification. All this, by the way, is the most general way I can explain what happened before the match, and it's generally the most accepted way that things went down. There's so many stories now from guys who have podcasts, like former wrestlers and announcers and things like that. And there's also a ton of people that want to take credit for what happened, but let's just stick to what happens on TV here. There was a lot of shit going on between Bret and Shawn that we have followed all the way through Reliving the War, and some of it was petty while other parts were pretty personal. But in terms of status and in terms of what fans saw on TV, it can't be denied that Bret wasn't losing a ton of heat to Shawn Michaels ever since HBK turned heel. Bret Hart and the Hart Foundation were the hottest things in WWF from WrestleMania XIII onwards, but once Shawn turned heel and formed an alliance with Triple H, Bret really wasn't the baddest guy in town anymore. Still though, if Vince knew he couldn't afford Bret, then all that could have been by design. Before looking at the match, because I know a ton of comments are going to say it, many fans and people within the industry think what happens at the end of Survivor Series was all a big work. It was all set up to play out the way it did, and there's too many things that don't add up for a lot of people, such as the fact that Bret had a film crew backstage filming his documentary. That's seen as a coincidence. Keep in mind though, they were filming him since Canadian Stampede, by the way. There's the fact that Bret should have saw what was coming a mile off, according to Sean Waltman and others. And there's also the fact that everyone involved benefited in some way or another, whether that be financially or creatively. I don't think it was a work because you'd have to be a fucking legit genius to map this all out while guaranteeing everybody wins. And the fact that Bret still gets legit tears in his eyes when talking about Montreal, and the fact he held on to his resentment for years upon years, also tells me it wasn't a work. But it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility either, I guess. I just don't buy into it. If you're looking for hot takes on why Montreal was a work, you won't find them here, unfortunately. All I knew as a kid going into this was that two of my favourite superstars were finally going to go to war, and now through making these YouTube videos, you and I, have collectively relived this whole feud, and we've watched every moment over again. If there was ever a case of guys working themselves into a shoot, there's no better case than Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I can confidently say this though, Bret Hart was the fucking man in WWF, and he was their most consistent performer. Shawn Michaels was one incredible athlete in the ring, and while his consistency was definitely lacking in terms of match bookings, his newfound attitude mixed with his in-ring abilities made him a must-see superstar. I had no idea Bret was leaving when I watched this as a kid. I didn't even pay attention to the numerous WCW Bret Hart or NWO Bret Hart signs in the arena. Montreal certainly knew that Bret was leaving though, but fans in attendance had no idea that they were about to witness the most talked about and infamous match in the history of professional wrestling. We see both men's journey from the locker room to the ring, and Shawn's entrance is something to behold. He knows what's going to happen going in. He said years later it really wasn't fun being the guy who had to do this shit, and it was easily his lowest point, but you sure as hell wouldn't think it when he steps out into the arena. Fans are throwing drinks all over HBK and they boo him relentlessly, but Shawn doesn't care. He grabs a Canadian flag and he disrespects it in a way that only Shawn Michaels can, and it genuinely feels hostile inside the arena. It's already super intense, and we've only seen one guy's entrance. The crowd pops as soon as Bret's shown on the big screens leaving his locker room, and he comes out to a thunderous ovation. There are fans who weren't happy with Bret leaving too, of course, but overall Bret gets a great reception from the audience. Shawn's acting like an asshole on the outside, taunting fans and playing up to the camera, and Bret just watches him for a moment. He then hands the championship belt over to Earl Hebner, and Shawn launches an attack on Bret before the bell rings. The crowd pops when Bret fights back, and Bret floors Shawn before delivering even more punches. Bret headbutts HBK as Jim Ross says the technical expertise of the Hitman has been thrown out the window. The Hitman then sends Shawn over the top rope with a clothesline that had a bit of force behind it. The bell still hasn't rung as Bret does some damage on the outside, with HBK bumping on the ring post and the ring steps. Bret then throws Shawn right into those same fans that HBK was ripping on before the two started fighting. It legitimately looks unsafe as referees get crushed in the middle of the fans, and it isn't long before Bret throws Shawn back over the guardrail. And then, for some reason, Vince McMahon is showing up along with Sergeant Slaughter and Pat Patterson. Alarm bells should have been already ringing. Jim Ross confirms there's speculation regarding Bret's future as Shawn finally fights back. Bret gets his head smashed on the ring steps, the crowd boos as Shawn chokes Bret with an American flag, and Shawn decides to take it back into the audience, showing absolutely no fear, though to be fair, there's more officials now. Shawn tries a pile driver, but he ends up getting backdropped over the guardrail. Bret kicks Shawn in the balls, McMahon screams to get back in the ring, but these two are going to fight on the entranceway, where Shawn takes another backdrop. It's absolute chaos here as officials surround Bret and Shawn, and they're seriously limiting the space available for the competitors. Even the camera crew have a tough time getting clear shots because there's just too many people. Shawn gets suplexed on the rampway, he gets up and he punches Pat Patterson, and he throws Bret into referee Tim White. Jerry Lawler says this is nothing but a good old fight, and he's absolutely right. The bell still hasn't rung as Bret throws Shawn over another guardrail set up beside the entranceway. We then see Vince McMahon telling the guys to get in the ring, but Bret continues to throw punches at Shawn and at referees. McMahon then gets agitated. He screams at Bret to get back in the ring, and Bret agrees. Bret grabs Shawn by the hair, and the two make their way down to the ring, with Shawn taking a few shots for good measure. The bell finally rings and Bret chokes Shawn with a Quebec flag. We see an inverted atomic drop from the Hitman, but Michaels replies with his flying forearm and the crowd boos. Shawn kicks Bret right in the face, he stomps on Bret's head, and Shawn then chokes Bret with that Quebec flag. Shawn's now taunting the crowd in between offense. He throws Bret in front of some rowdy fans, and the language from the fans is quite colourful. HBK's eating it up though. He's beating up their hero and he's getting a kick out of the negative crowd response, it seems. Shawn performs a front suplex while standing on the ring steps, and Bret gets his head slammed on the steel, and Shawn breaks a Canadian flag before driving the flagpole into Bret's throat. Back in the ring, HBK lands a double axe handle and he applies a front face lock, the first rest hold of the match. Bret gets out by launching Shawn and HBK slams hard on the mat. And then we see some classic Hitman offense. He goes for the leg. Unfortunately, that doesn't last too long because Shawn rakes Bret in the face before the Hitman could truly get started. Bret tries again, but another rake in the face stops him in his tracks. The Hitman's gasping for air in the corner. HBK goes for a crossbody, but Bret rolls through, only getting a 2 count. Bret though finally does a little damage to Shawn's knee, and he manages to wrap Shawn's leg around the ring post. He then applies the ring post figure 4 and the crowd goes nuts. The damage is now being done. Bret wants to make sure though, so he punches the leg, he drops his body weight on the leg at the ropes. He locks in a figure 4 though instead of a sharpshooter, but Shawn won't give up. HBK screams in pain before reversing the pressure, and Bret grabs the bottom rope. The crowd are chanting Bret's name as the Hitman lays in more punches, and we see the Flair corner bump. Bret then performs the Russian leg sweep, the snap suplex, and the backbreaker. He then goes to the top rope, but Shawn grabs the referee and Hebner takes a bump. Shawn rakes Bret in the face. The Hitman's now down on the mat. Shawn applies the sharpshooter, and while Bret's in his own hold, Earl Hebner instructs the timekeeper to ring the bell, and so does Vince McMahon. Bret grabs Shawn's foot for the planned reversal, but the match is ended. Shawn Michaels wins the WWF Championship even though Bret Hart didn't give up. The Hitman was fucked over, he was screwed. He and Shawn look at Vince wondering what's going on, with Shawn acting like he had no idea why the match ended. Bret spits on Vince, and McMahon orders Shawn to get the belt and get out of the arena. Shawn's escorted back up the rampway by Triple H and Jerry Briscoe, and the show fades to black. This is how the pay-per-view ended right here, leaving me completely confused as a kid because I thought Bret just gave up. I, like everyone else who recorded Survivor Series that night, watched those final moments again about 10 times to try to make sense of what happened, and it did start to make sense after watching it over a few times, though I still didn't know Bret was leaving for WCW, and I thought this was going to be some sort of storyline that got resolved on Raw. When the show goes off the air, the Hart Foundation come down to talk to Bret, and the Hitman's close to tears. He looks absolutely devastated. He eventually lets fans know where he's headed by finger tracing the letters WCW, and he then proceeds to destroy monitors and cameras set up at the commentary tables. He gets brought back to the dressing room by arena security, and when he gets backstage, he asks Shawn straight up if he had anything to do with what happened. Shawn swears that he had no idea.
Shawn, you weren't in on that?
Fucking idea. I got no place. God's my fucking witness. My hands are clean of this one, I swear to God. He's yelling at me out there. I gave him the belt when I came back here. I will not have any part of it.
Bret takes a shower. He's told by Rick Rude and Davey Boy Smith that Vince is waiting to speak with him, and Bret wants a message delivered to Vince. If McMahon's still there when Bret gets done, he's gonna knock him out. Vince decides he's gonna give Bret a shot. He doesn't leave, so Bret makes good on his promise, and according to Bret, he floored Vince with a single punch. Vince fell on Jerry Briscoe and twisted his ankle too, or he done some sort of damage to his foot, but Bret's documentary crew managed to record Vince walking away from the dressing room. For now, that was the end of Bret Hart's relationship with Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation. And what can I say? That's Bret done, and the company are going to carry on with HBK as champion. It was so shit being a Bret Hart fan and seeing this happen, and even if you weren't a fan of the Hitman, you can still see why it would suck. And yes, I know, as mentioned, people thought this was all a big setup, but even if you fully believe that, it's still a shit way for a legit legend to leave the company.
I was devastated. I can't even put into words.
Join me next week for Reliving the War, and we'll see how the company moves forward without one of their biggest superstars. Over on Nitro, the NWO are already getting ready to welcome the Hitman into the family, as WCW now have the most talked about wrestler in the world getting ready to jump ship. Surely they can't fuck this up, right? Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one, and take care.